why not fully protect yourself? You're never going to go ultra thin.
It depends if you're in it for enjoyment or protection. All I remember from that game mainly is watching Dion Dublin headbutt Robbie Savage.
And I've got this sort of chub rub situation going on between my thighs.
But to be fair, if it's at your eye level, it's only ever going to be my glory hole. Hello and welcome to That Peter Crouch podcast with me, Peter Crouch. As usual, I'm joined by Chris Stark and Statman Dave. We're in the pub. Are we okay?
I'm good. You good, Statman?
Yeah, no, I'm having a great time. I mentioned before, five-a-side. I'm getting a bit older, bit of pain below the knee joint. Crouch was talking through how I can massage it, so hopefully I can work on that in the off-season.
Yeah, struggling. How are you going? Are you pancakes?
I'm okay. Yeah, I've discussed with you. I've just been off the fitness thing of late, as you know, and then I've been trying to get a tiny bit fitter. I always feel better, and we've had discussions about this, Pete. Sometimes I feel like you put me to one side and just say, look, you need to be a little bit fitter. Do you know what I mean? You do motivate me a bit.
I do think that once we slip out of it, it's then very hard to get back into it. When you're into it, it's all you want to do. You just want to keep on top of it. It's good for your mental health as well as your physical health.
And I've got this sort of chub rub situation going on between my thighs. And it's...
Is this a situation? Obviously, I've not been across it. I've never had chub rub. No.
Mate, look at the gap between your thighs. Basically, my two thighs, whenever I attempt any exercise, are rubbing together.
Fuck.
Right?
Sounds pretty painful.
So if you don't do exercise for a while, it's a bit like playing a guitar for the first time where your fingers need to get used to the strings. You know? So my thighs are rubbing together. I've only got little legs. So I'm in this horrendous situation where even being in the pub sat down like this is painful.
Really?
You'll never I'll be amazed if you ever get chub rub.
I'm miles away from it, yeah.
It'll never happen. But I am thinking, and I don't know if it's just my fat thighs that are making me think this. Should I retire from football?
What a sad day. That can't happen. What will we do? Have you no pancakes?
But you came to this point in your career where you went, look, I've got to call it. And I don't know if I'm not playing enough football. Every time I play football, I'm getting really injured. It takes days, sometimes weeks to recover.
That's not down to the shin pads. That's down to physical fitness.
Just physical fitness and age. I mean, I'm not far off retirement age for what you were. What age did you retire?
I was 38 when I retired, but that was late for a footballer.
Yeah, so I've just turned 36,
Right, so yeah, you're in the twilight zone then.
So I just wonder, and I'm seeing some other great footballers retiring at the moment, Gareth Bale, and I think I'm now questioning, is it my time?
You know, maybe you could bring the family onto the pitch. I don't know where you normally play, but it's, goals in Maidenhead or something. And maybe you get the family down, just see you play for the last time, and then just walk off and maybe announce it on Twitter.
Yeah.
I think one of the big things though, Chris, in this, the short time before you retire, we've probably got to sort the chub rub situation out. Vaseline could work. What about spray and A's?
As a sort of lubricant
for the thighs.
Yeah, we've not really done much with spray and A's since we came up with it a while ago,
have we? Isn't it, mate? It's a tough one. I put it out there. Talks are in progress. It's hard to get a product out there these days, especially one as good as that.
We're really discovering that. I mean, we made spray and A's, then Heinz shithoused us, didn't they?
Brought out a salad friggin' spray or something.
Yeah. We were tagged in it thousands of times because it was basically spray and A's. But we should look into it again. But if there are ideas and things that we've said which you don't feel that we've kind of got across the line yet, please do let us know, and we should give it a sort of new, renewed effort.
Yeah, we'll follow them up. And if there's anything that you'd like to create, maybe or advise us on a chub rub situation, and help Chris out.
Yeah, but I think you're right, Crouchy. I think looking ahead to the season, I am wondering in the weeks ahead if I should retire from football, what that will look like, and how we would deal with it on this podcast, because there must be other people listening right now that are considering retirement as well.
Yeah, you know what I'd like to do when you officially retire, just get it on that yellow bar on Sky Sports or something like that. Chris Stark has decided to hang his shin pads up.
Do you know what I want?
For one last time.
I want a notification on every phone, through the sports apps.
Just get it out there.
Little thing to run by you, just whilst we're talking about innovation in football. I, as you know, go to a few Maidenhead games. I don't get to as many Watford games as I would like at the moment, but Maidenhead it's pretty much down my road, so I go to quite a few games. So I feel quite invested. Now, the thing is, what used to happen at Maidenhead when they were in the league below was you could have a beer whilst you were watching the football.
Like Dulwich Hamlet, very similar.
Which was amazing. But now the National League, what they've done is they've kind of built fences in front of the bars, which are on the side of the pitch, to stop you obviously being able to see the football and have a beer at the same time, because them's the rules. There's literally just a fence that's been built to separate people and a steward on the end to make sure no one...
absolutely bonkers in the sense of like, you need money in that level of football, right? Like grassroots football is massively underfunded. You know, National League football is funded to a point, but you're stopping one of the biggest things that people are going to do at football is have a beer. And I imagine the games at Maidenhead, there's not anyone that's getting too rowdy. There's no flares.
How have you dealt with it?
And here's the innovation. So, stood in the corner bar at Maidenhead Football Club, York Road, right? It just came to me. I was stuck behind this fence and I'm thinking, oh, fuck's sake, like, why can't I just drill a hole in this fence? That was my first thought. And then I thought, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit like the Shawshank Redemption. I'm going to bring a little thing along, like a spoon or something, because I can get that into the ground. Can't bring a knife in, obviously, right? So I'm going to bring a spoon. I don't think you can bring a screwdriver. Like,
or a drill.
A drill. But I'm going to bring a spoon, right? And I'm going to, under the bit where it says no drinks allowed outside the bar area, there's a sign, right? So I'm going to lift that up every time, like just turn to the side. I'm just going to spoon away at the fence a bit until a hole is formed.
Yeah.
So you're making a glory hole for the football?
Yeah, a glory hole to be able to, and then that's fine because I can stand by the fence, right? And I can have a pint and I can still see out.
Through the glory hole.
Checkmate, right? Until they block it up. And then I thought, well, that's the problem. I'm going to spoon away at this fence, and then at some point, they're going to probably, you're right, Dave, think it's a glory hole.
Shut it down. We've got to stop this right now.
Of course, that's what it would be. Yeah, there's a hole in a fence, it's a glory hole.
But to be fair, if it's at your eye level, it's only ever going to be my glory hole.
You'll get banned, Crouchy, from Maidenhead, you will.
I don't want to be associated to it. I'll be honest, I thought the innovation was going to be slightly better.
Oh, it is better. It is better. So I stood there 15 minutes at half time trying to work out this problem. Then it came to me. Periscope.
Right.
I've ordered myself
a periscope. And because not many people use periscopes in everyday life.
I don't know how to, I suppose they wouldn't know how to combat that.
So it's a kid's one. So it's a sort of toy periscope. It's genius because I don't think they can take it off me. By the time this podcast goes out, I will have experimented with this periscope. So I feel safe saying it now because I don't want anyone, any steward looking out for me. But my plan at the time of recording this is I'm taking a periscope into York Road and then I'm going to be behind the fence with a beer in hand. I'm going to up periscope. And on the other end, you're just going to see at the top of a periscope like a submarine.
I'd like you to be, while you do, I'd like you to be dressed as a submarine.
Do you know, that's how to get it in the ground. If they take it off me at the start,
dress.
I'll dress as a submarine and bring it in. And then I'm thinking, if this is successful and I've somehow beaten the system with this, I'm going to be launching a range of periscopes from that Peter Crouch podcast website, themed with your favourite football team, that kind of thing. I need a decent name for them though. Decent brand of periscope. What's the famous Perry? Katy Perry. Ideally a footballer. Perry Groves.
That's your mate now, isn't it, Katy Perry?
Yeah. A couple of weeks ago, St. Patrick's Day, I was in a pub in Windsor and weirdly enough, Orlando Bloom stood up. There was an Irish band on and he stood up and in this quite old Irish voice started singing this song about, it was almost like the only way I can describe it is like he'd been at sea for 20 years or something, was returning home to his wife. And,
yeah, he's Pirates of the Caribbean. He was for ages, wasn't it? Might be where he learned it.
It's a very odd moment. I put this video up on social of Orlando Bloom singing this random pub. I was pissed, but it was definitely him. And then sure enough, she's now seen. I didn't tag her in, but someone sent her the video and she's seen it. And then she's written above it, "What a ledge."
So many questions here, right? Number one, why is Orlando Bloom in that boozer?
We'll never know.
Number two, why is Katy Perry using the word like ledge?
Yeah. And I don't know.
I've got an Orlando Bloom story myself.
I was going to ask if you knew him so that we could sort of find out why the fuck he was there.
No, well, I don't know him, but I once bumped into him at Urinal. And this sounds like a lie, but I was in quite a trendy place. And I was having a, piss. And at the Urinal. And I just turned around and Orlando Bloom was there, and I went, Orlando Bloom. And he had a dog in his hand. Like, it's not a euphemism for his penis. He literally had like a little sausage dog whilst holding his sausage.
So how did he unzip himself? Or did the dog?
I didn't get that. It's like he magically just appeared. He had a dog and he was going to the toilet. And I said, all right, mate. And he said, yeah, you okay? And I said, great. And then that was it.
Did anyone else see Orlando in the pub?
No, it was me and him. There wasn't a pub. It was like a trendy kind of bar, but there was lots of different areas to this bar. There was lots of private little bits and pieces.
This is what he does. He appears. And I understand.
When you least expect him.
It's just, let us know if you've seen Orlando Bloom in some sort of unexpected situation, because that's two of us around the table. Have you, Dave?
Not yet. No, I'm probably going to go down to the pisser in a sec. Renovated, and then he's just going to appear.
Never know, do you?
And then it'll just disappear, and it'll be one of those moments. But we should get him on the podcast because he needs to explain all these.
No, we could. I mean, I think if his missus is using words like ledge, it feels like it's sort of like in our realm. So I was saying, because he's English, he probably uses those words, so that makes her use them.
Yeah, that's what I actually think it is, because he was a bit of a ledge, you know. It's St. Patrick's night, and he's decided to step up with a band and
sounds good. That's great.
Which is exactly what we would do in that situation as well. All right. Well, shall we get on with today's episode?
Yeah, today's episode, guys, it's about the derbies. I played in some big derbies, and there's been some of the best derbies. Like, there's derbies that I want to go to, like Boca Juniors River Plate. That's one that's on my radar. I've never been to the Glasgow derby, Celtic Rangers. That's something that I've always wanted to do. Big derbies in other countries. I haven't even done El Clasico. Been to Bernabeu, been to Barcelona to watch matches, but never to watch the big one. So they're things that are really on my bucket list. And I said when I retired, I'd do them. But at the moment, I'm too busy dicking around here with you. So I haven't managed it.
What was the first derby that you played in?
Well, there'd be one at QPR, but it might have been a QPR Fulham that I might have played in. I think my first experience of a proper derby was Aston Villa Birmingham, and Birmingham City had just been promoted. And playing in that game, I remember I was on the bench and I came on, and the atmosphere was electric. Those two games in that season were amazing.
Do you remember the moment of the game that you came on? What the score was?
All I remember from that game mainly is warming up on the sideline and watching Dion Dublin headbutt Robbie Savage. and Dion's a great guy. He's still our mate.
Yeah, top lad.
We all love him, right? And it was so out of character. And Savage just had rolled him up that much. And I was so close to it. And I was going, no, he's gonna headbutt him. And you could see it coming. And he just went bang, planted the nut on Robbie Savage. And I was like, it was just a cauldron at Villa Park. And I didn't realise how much hatred there was between Villa and Birmingham City until I was in that game. And watching that happen. And it was the game the two games where Peter Enkelman had a bit of a howler in both. The one back at St Andrews as well.
Who was the manager?
David O'Leary.
And had he instructed the headbutt?
No. That was entirely Dion's plan, I think. But you know what Sav's like. In that time, he was winding people up, and and it was working. It was like, I remember Jeff Horsfield, Jeff Kenner. There was. And Robbie Savage was in that midfield, like winding our midfield up, and it was tackles were crunching in, and things were close to spilling over. But then, Dion headbutted him, and then I remember going back to Birmingham City, and it was the one where Olaf Melberg threw the ball back to Peter Enkelman, and he's lifted his foot up to control it. I don't know if you've ever seen this, and the ball goes under his foot and goes into the back of the net. And it was given because apparently there was if he'd have just let it go in,
it would have been fine. It would have
no goal.
Back. Yeah.
It would have been a goal kick.
Yeah.
But the fact that he lifted his foot up and it barely touched his foot, it went down as a Peter Enkelman own goal.
That would be a mad VAR, wouldn't it? That would be a mad one that we haven't had yet on VAR. Yeah. To just see, that I know of anyway, that the studs have made contact with a...
I mean, I've seen it like for probably 3-4 years after that, right? It was kept getting replayed. And I still... I'm unsure whether he actually touched that. But, because we're, good teammates, we all rallied round him and called him Polo Foot for the rest of the season.
Polo Foot?
Because there's a hole in it, obviously. So, yeah, that was his nickname for the whole year.
Has he made a mistake because of the nature of the game and the crowd that's behind him? Because at that point, you've got the away fans behind you, haven't you?
Well, what I'm looking at,
Ferocious,
I'm looking at there is Dion Dublin hasn't headbutted anyone on a football pitch other than in that kind of cauldron of hate. Peter Enkelman hasn't made a mistake like that ever, other than in those games, because they were like so aggressive, like unbelievably aggressive, but great to play in. And you're going to tell me I played 3 minutes or something.
You played a single minute, apparently, what we've got in the game. A single minute after the headbutt.
But I had the best view in the house.
The best view in the house, the headbutt. The other thing there is, like, do you guys remember when Jack Grealish got attacked by the Birmingham
same
City
game,
the
yeah.
same derby?
Yeah.
But like, I don't think, unless you're involved in that derby, you wouldn't class it as being one of the big ones. But having been there and being involved in them, they're massive. They're huge for the city and for the fans. But like, the atmosphere was just electric. It was a great one to play in.
Was there any, like, when you were playing youth level, you play like Tottenham Arsenal, was there any added spice in those games?
Yeah, there definitely, Dave. It's a good question because the North London derby, I remember, like, we got to the FA Premier League final and it was the first game that was ever shown on Sky Sports that I'd appeared in. The first leg wasn't, and we lost the first leg 2-0 at White Hart Lane, and the second leg it was at Highbury, and we won 1-0 and I scored, and it was like the first time I'd ever appeared on telly. My mum still got it on like VHS. You don't know, do you? Like, this could be my only time I appear on telly playing football. At that time, I was like, this is my greatest moment. We still lost the tie over 2 legs, but we won that one 1-0. But there was an added spice to it. To answer your question, whenever we went to London Colney, or they came to Chigwell Spurs Lodge to play, it was more people watched. The owner, I remember Alan Sugar watching one of the games.
Yeah, because how would it work with crowds and things like that? Because there was probably added interest, but obviously not the access that.
No. So like mums and dads, like families, uncles
but even
would come.
with family members who weren't necessarily partisan fans, really, were they? Did they get involved in that? Like, what caused that extra drama if it wasn't the fans in the stadium?
It's something about seeing the two kits together. Like, honestly, it is. You know what I mean? If you see, Man United and Liverpool on a pitch, no matter where you are, right, it's more interesting. Yeah. If you see, Watford Luton, for instance, like, there's a bit of needle to it, and there always would be. And I think you need to, if you got any hopes of being a professional footballer, you need to sort of learn that needle and what it's about and the history of it. And every derby I went into, like, I wanted to understand how much hatred was there and why there was that much hatred, because often there's a reason. Certainly with the Portsmouth Southampton,
so you'd research a bit of history.
Yeah. Like, you try and understand like what it is, and obviously the Everton Liverpool situation, it runs deep, and runs, when Everton had the best team at that time and not being able to go into Europe, and like, when you hear it explained to you, you can understand why it runs so deep. And the same with Southampton Portsmouth is, Southampton are, in Portsmouth's eyes, the Scummers, and Portsmouth are the Skates, and that kind of derogatory term derives from a huge kind of historical thing that happened. And when you play in that derby, you understand why, and that's been passed down from the people that suffered in that situation or allegedly suffered in that situation. And obviously there's two sides to every story, but being involved in it as a footballer, it's good to understand why that passion is there.
I think that's really important to, like you're saying, that you get in an extra bit of motivation there. So like the first time that you played a full 90 minutes in a derby was for Southampton against Portsmouth. FA Cup, 4th round. 2004-2005 season. Do you remember what happened that afternoon?
I certainly do, yeah. Well, that was a special day for me. In the FA Cup, I'd already played for Portsmouth. I'm back at Southampton, and it was the last minute. And Harry Redknapp, myself, Nigel Quasi were players that had played for Portsmouth before, and that's a difficult divide. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Southampton fans didn't take to me at all at first because of the rivalry, and I'd played for Portsmouth. And we were playing in that game, so there's so many subplots. The fact that Harry Redknapp managed Portsmouth and now he's managing Southampton. If we're drawing the game up to the 90th minute and there's a penalty, and we've talked about this before, but that no one wanted to go back to Fratton Park. And and I remember looking over and Harry saying to me when I grabbed the ball. No, let someone else take it, and then me sticking it away, and that was a great moment for me personally in a derby, and probably my biggest moment up to that day of playing in a derby.
What was it like in terms of the emotion around that? You've just scored the winner. Like me and Chris have probably said, we've celebrated that on the other side where our teams have gone on to win. What's it like as a player?
Well, I think when you win a game in the last minute, no matter what game it is, it's the biggest buzz ever. To do it against the biggest rivals, and the relief of, certainly from Harry's side, of not going back to Fratton Park. The whole situation of winning against your local rivals in that manner in the FA Cups, that means, they go out, we go through. Of course, it's a big moment.
Yeah. It's crazy how it works, isn't it? And like, how much does it filter from the manager? So how much does the manager influence things on those derby days? Or do they tend to, in your experience, treat it as a normal game?
I think that a lot of the time the manager, I think certainly my day, I think things have probably changed slightly now, a little bit. There's so many players that maybe don't understand. There's less local players, if you know what I mean, to tell you what it's all about. The Premier League's changed a lot, sort of over the years. It's evolved to the point where, I don't know, I think we have a better standard, but I think there's less hatred between, not the fans are the same, but the players. I think I don't know, it feels more, you get on with, like when we're in the tunnel and I'm playing a derby, we'd have a chat.
See, that should be illegal.
Yeah, that is disgusting. Chris, that takes the piss, right?
Disgusting.
It's absolutely disgusting.
What do you think?
I don't know. I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
I really don't like it. I like the fact that when you go out there, and I think fans want to see that. I think it's a show, isn't it? It's a game of football, but it should mean as much to the fans as it does the players. I think
even if national team comrades, you should be treating it as if you hate each other.
Yeah. But I think in certainly my day, I think it was. I think if you look at all the big games, like Manchester United playing Arsenal, it doesn't matter if you play for the same national team. It didn't care. They still kick lumps out of each other. And it felt as aggressive as it was in the stands.
But did you ever have that where you'd we're in the tunnel, reach out to an England teammate and they just went the other way with it?
No, I wouldn't. I don't think you'd reach out.
Gerrard sort of led by example now.
Yeah, and I think afterwards, you'd speak to them, fine, that's no problem. But I think before the game, it might be a hello, but as soon as you're, in the tunnel, I think that's game face, isn't it?
Yeah, there's got to be a point there. Like the atmosphere pre-game as a fan, you go into the ground, you're having a few beers, you can taste it in the air. It's like when there's a thunderstorm in a sense, you can feel it on your tongue. And as a fan, I don't want to see you touching the opposition or being pally with the opposition at all. Like, you need that division in the dressing room. You need that kind of the bite. You need it.
There's something tribal about football, and a lot. I think if you're a fan of a different sport, where you mix and things like that, and which is lovely as well. Like, you go for a pint at the rugby, and you all sit together, and you give a little jape here and there, but
that's how embarrassing it is. You're not calling each other wankers, yeah? Little jape here and there.
No, but you know what I mean. But there's something special about football, and I think we can say, it's Neanderthal or it's laddie, but I think that's what makes football special, is that you're that team. I can't go near you, and you're this team.
But I think, doesn't it run deep? I suppose you can't get much deeper than describing it as Neanderthal. But what I mean more is, I think it comes from a kind of pride place as well. So derbies allow you to be super proud of your own place where you live or where you grew up or your family.
So true, yeah.
And I think that's what, for me, makes derby games very, very special, because it's almost like you're having to prove your place is the best against someone that is saying that it's really not.
Yeah.
That's such a nice one.
Yeah. Well, it's the same. It's Celtic Rangers, isn't it? That's as deep as you can go, right? It's history, it's religion, and we say, football's religion, but there it actually is, and it's something bigger than the match that's happening.
So my dad told me this story that when he was in the Shetland Islands, he went to Celtic Rangers, and he was a Catholic, so he was supporting Celtic, and he went with lads that obviously he was English, and they were like, don't say anything, literally don't open your mouth, and then they were like, don't catch anything, and he was like, why don't catch anything? They're like, well, they put razor blades in potatoes and they throw them at you, so if you catch it, your hand gets messed up. And that was in the 80s, obviously, when football was crazy. But that's like, it's obviously far too far now, but that's where it was in the 80s, where the needle was even...
Yeah, like that hooliganism stuff, you know, that's got to stay to the dark ages, you know, like obviously that's awful. But there's something about that kind of like passion and commitment and love for your place and your team that is special in football.
I think it's hard as well when you can't have that derby rivalry because one team gets relegated. That's always a bit...
No one wants that. You know, I don't think you want.
You don't
that.
necessarily want the other team to get promoted all the same.
You don't want them to do well, but you don't want them relegated because that game is the best game of the season. And I know everyone's nervous about it, and that energy and that sickness of maybe even losing it, but you want that because of the when you do win it, how good it is.
There's some mad derby situations that happen in football. So there's that one, obviously, where you're kind of willing a team to maybe get promoted. Not many people admit that, just so you can play them and have that derby day experience. The other one is when a derby team effectively improves your position by winning. So you see this with top of the league and end of the season. It's often the case where begrudgingly a rival team has to beat the team that you're kind of against.
I remember Liverpool-Blackburn when United were at West Ham.
Yeah.
Remember that and Blackburn just had to draw, didn't they, I think it was Redknapp scored and the atmosphere in Anfield was like, they weren't sure if they wanted it.
What do you do?
Like, what do you do? Your team scored, but no one was really celebrating.
Yeah.
And even Redknapp was a bit embarrassed. And he just scored an absolute belter.
It's just a mad situation when you think about it, that in any other situation, the word be getting round and people start cheering. And equally, if you're the other team and there's a chance that you winning can put your rival team ahead to win the league, not against yourself, like you could be in a different point in the league, that's fucking weird as well. Because it's almost like you want to lose a game just so your derby team don't win the league.
It's a strange one. One of the weirdest ones for me was that lasagna vibe at Tottenham when they all got sick. And it was between Arsenal and Tottenham for the fourth position. And I've spoke to the lads. I wasn't at Spurs at the time, but I spoke to the lads like Robbie Keane, Jermaine Genius, Michael Carrick, who all just said they couldn't play because the team hotel was. They think the lasagna's been spiked.
Mate, I've actually met the chef.
Have you?
Yeah,
the chef that did that.
The lasagna Spurs chef.
What's his take on it?
He's saying it wasn't his fault.
You surprised me. I thought he was going to go, I fucked them. I'm an Arsenal fan.
I think if we agreed to shove a bag on his head, he'll come on.
Yeah, he will. Does he want to remain like?
I think
when they put that dark
like an
thing on him. Yeah. When they put that dark thing, when they do like gangs of Mexico City, and they're all standing around and they're all like dark, and they have like a weird voice.
Maybe you could shift them from the pub, keep the bag on, straight into a taxi. Off they go. So there's all, we hide that identity.
Also, the problem with him, he's always in chef whites whenever I see him with his name on his chef whites. So
I actually know how this works because I did one of the series of Masked Dancer, didn't I?
Oh, of course.
So I know how to get them in and out.
Yeah.
I saw it firsthand.
So maybe we utilise that for this podcast. Great.
If he wants to come on,
great,
we'll put one of the Masked Dancer heads on him.
And we just ask him very honestly and sincerely what happened that day, like his movements that day. Let's do his voice as well, because that's always good fun, isn't it? They always give him fucking strange voices. Sometimes, and this is the one, and we will move on back to derbies in a second. The one that kills me, right, is when they go, we've disguised their face, right, and we've got an actor to do their voice. Yeah. I kind of think, why the fuck are they there then?
What's the point?
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, we can't see him and we can't hear him.
We can't see him. We've got an
why
actor
they just
to do their
fucking
voice.
Zoom it?
Do it over phone. One of those cat filters on Zoom.
Right, lads, enough of the lasagna. Let's get back to football. North London derby. So looking at the stats, Crouch, you scored 9 goals against Arsenal, which was your favourite opponent in football. You also picked up more yellow cards against Arsenal than any other team. But you didn't score for Spurs against Arsenal. You didn't get booked for Spurs when you played Arsenal. Was there just like something about that game in being a derby that changed how you played? Or was it just
No, I don't think so. I think it was. I wasn't at Spurs long, and I was there like 2.5 years. So there's a bit of the fact that they were very good.
Yeah.
Were you running away? Sounds to me what Dave's saying is there's no stats on you.
Saying I shit myself, basically. Did I shit myself in that particular game?
Yeah.
I'd like to think no. I think I was on the bench a little bit. In all honesty, they're quite a haze for me. They were great games and incredibly passionate, and I've lived in North London, so I know what they mean. But I just didn't have, because I haven't had a personal real effect on them, so I don't remember them as much. Do you know what I mean?
What about the 3-3, the last North London derby you played in 90 minutes, 3-1 down? How did you get back into the game?
Do you know on the previous podcast, I think I said we won that game like 3-2 because it felt like a win.
So there was a 3-2 earlier on in the season. So
Which one did
at
you
the Emirates, you won 3-2.
So yeah, we did. We won the one at the Emirates 3-2, but that I remember clear as day because I always remember I was on the pitch. I was like back post and Yunus Kabul scoring a goal at the Emirates to win 3-2. And it was a special way to win it. So that was amazing. And it was a year before I arrived was the 4-4 with David Bentley, scored from near the halfway line. They were great games. There was a few moments there as a period where North London derbies were the one, but the 3-2 was the one in my time at Spurs. That was the one that sticks out for me. Was the one in the Premier Under-20 Youth Final, and also the one where Yunus Kabul scored and we drew 3-3.
Do you celebrate as a team derby games differently?
Yeah, definitely. I remember I've talked about like the Merseyside derby, and when I got to Liverpool when I was playing for my first Everton game and then my first United game, you just wanted to win so much.
But when you win, do you as a team go out? Do you celebrate? I mean, you don't go out and celebrate every win that way, but cup finals, derby games,
cup finals,
is it the
derby
same?
games I would class as the same as almost cup finals. What's difficult is it's not the end of the season.
No,
is it?
that's true.
You can't go too big time. And you might have to play them again. And if you go too big, you realise that's going to come back to haunt you maybe at some stage.
Yeah.
But yeah, you enjoyed them.
I don't want to rub it in with Luton fans. Obviously, people know I'm a Watford fan, so with that, it's a derby game and it's against Luton. So we beat Luton 4-0, which is massive, right? But then Luton are doing well in the league now. They've got the manager that we had beginning of the season. Rob Edwards doing really well.
I played with Rob Edwards at Villa.
Did you? Did you actually?
Yeah. There's a young lad coming through.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So I met him at the beginning of
Good
the
lad.
season. I met him at the Elton John concert at Vicarage Road. I was
You couldn't get any more Watford than that.
It's battered, right?
Shin pads on.
When I might as well have proper parched him.
Yeah. Oh, you parched him?
I parched him.
Did you?
Unreal. Do you know what I did? So I'd met him before. I'd met him and his missus, and he'd met my missus and a couple of my mates that were there. Really nice bloke. I went up and he was there with his missus, the number 2, and I can't remember his name. I'm so sorry. The lad who was his number 2 and his missus. So the 4 of them were there. So what I've done is I've gone to the bar to go get a drink, and I've thought, do you know what? I'm going to buy the new Watford manager a pint, which was a horrendous idea actually. So I've come back to where he sat because he's a couple of rows behind me, and I thought in my drunk head, I was like, this would be a real moment. Gave him the pint like that. And he was like, no, I'm not drinking, mate. It was like, basically didn't want the pint. So I sort of had to give it to the number 2, who I hadn't bought a pint for in the first place.
Oh, no. So then he doesn't want to take it.
And it was awkward for him because I think he might have felt a lack of respect for the fact that I didn't get him a pint. I didn't bother with the women that were with him as well. So it's a terrible experience.
When parching goes wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
It was a real
It's a warning for those parches out there, that.
parching nightmares. Sounds like a TV show, doesn't it? Like...
Crouchy, we spoke about the Merseyside derby. In your first derby, you scored in, but a player that was so good in those games, Steven Gerrard. Only Ian Rush scored more goals in the Merseyside derby than Gerrard. Gerrard with 10, but also Man United, Liverpool. Salah's obviously broken the record now with 12, but Gerrard with 9 goals is pretty incredible. What was it about his character that meant him to be so dominant in these matches?
I think big players come just arrive in big moments, don't they? Big moments are finals, which is what he's achieved, regardless of whether it's a derby or not, and derbies, you know, so those big games. And there are times, like, I remember some tackles from Steven Gerrard in those Merseyside derbies in the early days that were horrific. You know, he got sent off a couple of times in those. So there's an edge to his game that he's playing on the edge, and it's like, there's a if you play just under, or if it bubbles over, it's a red card, and if it stays under, then you get the best performance that you could have in a derby. And I think it's those fine moments that define you as a player. And he'll say himself, I think there's times where it's spilt over, and there's times where, you know, it was the optimal level of pumped up.
You get the impression he loves those games as well.
Who doesn't?
Like, it's what really fucking gets him going. What was he like in the dressing room before a game? Was he a different Steven Gerrard, or was he quite consistent?
No, he was different.
Like,
yeah, him, and I thought Jamie Carragher was the same. I think he was, because they're local, and I think, you know, with Jamie having, you know, a connection to Everton when he was a kid as well, and then coming full circle and being totally, you know, engulfed in what he's doing at Liverpool, I think it affects him more than anyone else, win or lose. And you could see the nerves sort of leading up to it beforehand. He was more nervous about, I think, I think he'll openly tell you, he was probably more nervous about the Everton game than he was any other game.
Yeah.
I remember absolutely hating Steven Gerrard as a Man United fan growing up. The amount of times that he'd come to Old Trafford and score, he was just that good. Danny Murphy was another one, you know.
Yeah, he was,
just always used to score against United. Always used to score.
But what's the official term for derby, though? Like, what is the classification of it?
Liverpool Everton's in the same city. You know, you've got the Nottingham derby where the grounds are like back onto each other. You know, but then you've got Portsmouth and Southampton, which are two different cities. I think it's 19 miles or something between them.
You've got that one that's bound by a motorway, haven't you?
Yeah, that's the M23, isn't it?
The M23 derby.
Yeah, and that's a mad one. But I just think it's like something that derives from, like, I played in games like for Portsmouth against Millwall, and I know that, you know, those games at that time were, for some reason, felt mad. I remember got locked in the changing room at the den, and ringing my dad and going like, "Dad, are you all right?" And he was like, "No, I'm getting chased around Bermondsey." I was like, that's how rivalries start, and that's how derbies start, and that things like that happening can lead into the game becoming bigger, and historical events or a bit of trouble can end up being a derby. And I don't think it has to be because you're from the same city. Like,
have you ever been the victim of sort of derby? It is kind of derby housery, but did you ever feel that you had to vet who was coming into your house in terms of what football team they support? Just because, from their point of view, if they're sort of a rival team's fan, they're gonna want to leave their mark in there, aren't they?
Got to be careful, I think. Be wary of it, definitely.
I'm not saying anyone be so unprofessional as to like gob in your food or something.
Or cook a dodgy lasagna.
It's a weird thing you've got to deal with as a footballer. But I think we should make this a safe space for anyone that has done this to Crouchy. And it could have been anywhere. It could have been you were working in a restaurant, you were working in a bar, you were, I don't know, you were a parking attendant. And you've realised it's Crouchy leaving his car and have gone straight for the ticket. Could be any of those things. Just know, and I know we've talked about informants on here, we're very good at keeping you anonymous, and we'd love to hear from you. Because it's better out than in, and you're past it now, aren't you?
Yeah, no, definitely. No, listen, if there's anything that you might have done to a player, for instance, or
yes, we widen it out to every player.
And
we'll just keep it. We can keep you anonymous, all that kind of thing. And obviously nothing too serious or anything, but just a little light housery.
I remember getting off, obviously this isn't a derby, but I remember being at Stoke, and I quite often used to get the train back from Stoke. Quite often I'd finish the game. If you're playing a London team, most of their fans would be on the train as well. Anyway, I walked down and I had to walk through them as the train was arriving. So I'll be fine. I'm like 8 foot. Like they've literally just watched me play as well. I know one will see me. I'll walk down. Anyway, one of them took my hat off.
Oh no!
And went, Crouchy, like started lobbing the hat around. And I felt like, oh my God, like I was a kid at school or something getting bullied, right? They're throwing his hat around. I said, oh, come on, lads, give me my hat back. Anyway, got the hat back, and then one of them was going, oh, just FaceTime ad for us. I was going, knock off. And then, so we was having this to and fro, and I thought, oh my God, hopefully it's good natured. And it was, do you know what I mean? We had a laugh. Like, obviously, once I got my hat back and, the bullying stopped.
Did they hold the hat ransom for a phone call with Abby Clancy?
No, they was like, one of the lads was like FaceTimer, and I was like, fuck off.
FaceTimer, I'll give you a hat.
No way. And in the end, I ended up getting on one of the carriages. We had a few beers. I think it could have gone like, if I'd have gone like, fuck off, and got aggressive with it, I think because I embraced it and said, come on, like, we had a laugh. I don't know, the situation was diffused, but that, it could have gone another way, couldn't it? I think if I was a twat, it would have definitely gone a fucking other way.
Imagine if you'd been sent off that game, though.
That's
and you were in a different mindset.
Imagine, if I'd have done something in that particular game, I think I'd have spent the weekend in Stoke.
Can we give a little nod as well in derby matches to mascots who are there really for generally the family sort of crowd, aren't they? But derby games,
when they wind them up,
people, so there's
wind the crowd up.
Yeah, I guess there's two things to it, which is it's hard for a mascot to fulfill their duty of looking after the kids because there are a lot of derby games, kids stay at home, don't they? I mean, a lot of people don't take their kids to derby games. But my God, like when things are heightened and everything's really tense for generally a smiling crocodile bird, something like that, it somehow still manages to not be able to take the sting out of.
I don't know. It's
people
like
get angry.
So bad. It's like when we, right in the early days of the podcast, when we were across mascots doing the minute silence.
Yeah,
they just can't do it. And they've got the big. I mean, there's the Twitter handle, isn't there? Mascots doing the minute silence. That's something we should revisit again.
Yeah, totally.
The mascot doing the minute silence, like with the big grin on his face, and quite often like a big sun or a huge like giraffe or something, like putting his head down and bowing down to it. It's great to see, isn't it?
One of my mates is seriously considering becoming the mascot of Maidenhead in the idea that he'll get a free ticket because it costs a bit. It's even National League is still costs a bit of money to get in, but we haven't seen a mascot at Maidenhead, so I don't. It's the Magpies is their name, so I'm assuming there's a magpie costume somewhere, which for some reason isn't being utilised. Or can you get onto your costume people and get a magpie design?
What I do, not a problem.
And I'm well up for letting my mate do it. But I think what we should do is get my mate Nick mic'd up and get him to do the squawking as well.
Just making a noise while he's... Yeah, we'll just follow his journey.
We'll have our periscopes out. We'll have him on comms.
We'll be on a periscope in the bar watching that. Yeah. It's mad. I just think with derby matches in particular, what mascots deal with, it's so heightened and it's so easy for them to wind things up that I'm assuming mascots get a talking to before derby games as well to kind of like...
It's like a deal, like you say, it's less of a family atmosphere, isn't it? It's more aggressive. And like watching a mascot who's got a big grin on his face get aggressive.
I'd absolutely love the opportunity to do that. United Liverpool or United City or United Leeds would be so much fun.
It's a good role, isn't it? Yeah, just an update on the swap shop. We've been inundated with requests for Charlie Adams boots. Joe says, "Hi lads, I've got no fucking use for my chicken outfit I wore to Crouchfest, so I'd like to swap them for Charlie Adams boots. I can confirm it's been washed, but there may be a dark fruit stain which won't come out. Let me know if you're all up for a swap." There was plenty of chickens at Crouchfest. A lot of them misbehaving.
Yeah.
From what I saw.
I think keep hold of the outfit because, look, we're not announcing anything here, but, we are exploring what we want to do with Crouchfest again. And so the chicken outfit might get another run.
I think that gets a run out. I enjoyed seeing the chickens.
Yeah, they were great, especially when it was a group of, there was a few groups like this. It was a group of chickens and then one referee with a ball cap on that was Mike Dean. There was a few of those groups.
There was an issue. There was a scuffle, wasn't there, at one stage?
Yeah.
And that referee came in and red carded the man in question.
It was brilliant. He didn't respect it.
He didn't respect it, no.
Don't be that guy, though. Don't be the Carl.
Don't be a Carl.
But I'm thinking on this, like, do you remember what the rules of this are? So we've got Charlie Adams boots that he used for something we were recording for Crouchfest. So there is used boots. We're happy to swap them for something of like equal value or slightly more. And we're going to swap up. That's the aim of this.
Keep swapping up. Charlie Adams boots, I think, listen, there's Joe, I can't give you the boots because I think the chicken outfit will come in handy. Keep on to that because Crouchfest 3 is in motion. But if you have anything to swap with us, we'd love to hear from you. It's thatpete@crouchpodcast.com. get in touch.
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily need to just be money value of boots. It could be something that's just quite cool or a little bit different that ultimately we'll be able to swap for something else along the way. So if you want to get in touch, as Crouchy said, send us your voice notes as well. You can do that on the email, peter.crouch@acast.com, or just slide into our DMs.
Yeah, I got loads more questions here from listeners, and I do love these. They come in thick and fast. George sends one in. I was working on a bar and a customer asked for a mixture of Diet Coke and orange juice. It got me wondering, if you had to make a low combo out of soft drinks, what would you choose?
Oh, no, we're not doing this, are we?
That's a good shout, though, for the non-alcohol drinker.
Don't you just do low zero? Isn't that how everyone seems to get away with it now? I mean, like, I just see stuff everywhere with drinks brands now.
Zero.
And it seems to be, if you
Just
whack
like
0%, that's been the latest
Trend.
trend, let's just put it.
Yeah.
Lout zero I like. But didn't we have like, someone suggested a lout with zero alcohol being called like a nout or something?
That is good. Now, he says you got a lout and a nout. Unreal.
That is 10 out of 10.
Let's focus on the lout, I think, though. Try get that back on shelves.
Yeah.
Ideally, I don't know what we need to, I don't know if it's a case we need to get on Dragon's Den or something like that. It just feels like people love the lout. And we made that, and it
was
so
such a good drink.
I
And
get
like,
so many messages from people going, "Where can I buy the loat?"
and bring it back. It's like, I just don't understand. It's like, there's a lot of Carls involved in this situation.
Yeah, that's just
stopping us having fun.
Let's be very honest about this. There are a few Carls that got involved. I think that's because everyone knows it will just be the greatest drink in the world.
Yeah.
And sadly, that has attracted a sort of
A lot of people
Carl off.
Absolute Carls all over it.
But, we've been in this situation before, and it can be unblocked with some diplomacy.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll work as
negotiation.
ever really hard behind the scenes, and hopefully we'll bring the lout and the nout back.
We just want it. We just want it out so everyone can drink and enjoy it. There was a lad who got engaged recently. I saw on Twitter. You sent your congratulations to him. First drink he had was the lout.
Yeah,
it was such
fantastic.
a lovely touch.
Touching.
Really, really touching.
Should we move on to another question? Message from Blake. What was the biggest fine you ever got as a player?
Yeah, when I was at Stoke, there was an issue with sort of people being late, and the fines really ramped up. So you didn't want it at all. It got to like, 500 quid if you didn't have your flip flops in the shower. £1,000 quid. If you're leaving like some kit around.
Hold on, were you fined for wearing flip flops in the shower, or
No,
fined for not wearing them? See, it feels to me you should be fined for wearing them. That's fucking weird.
No, well, like it's supposed to be like more hygienic if you don't, have your verrucas all around the shower.
Do you wear flip flops in the shower?
No, not normally, no. Not normally, but at a football.
You've been having a go at me about shin pads for the last few years.
In football in general, yeah, it was like you had to wear flip flops in the shower.
I was talking to a guy who's big in shin pads, and he was telling me that the best way to clean shin pads is wearing them in the shower, and that's what most footballers do. Did you ever see that?
No.
No, so he's lying.
Yeah, I think at Sunday League level maybe, but no, you don't. Listen, if you're a Premier League player, don't clean your own shin pads.
Yeah, because I kind of got it with the boots.
It's below them, Chris, all right?
Youth player having to scrub shin pads.
In all honesty, I don't think I ever wash my shin pads. I've got a message here from Mike, Chris. This is to you, actually. I keep getting adverts for shin pads, which are 8 by 5 centimetres. Is this what professional footballers wear, Crouchy? And is this too little protection for you, Chris?
Well, I don't know. You're the professional. I just think that it's like anything. Why not fully protect yourself? You're never going to go ultra thin on the...
It depends if you're in it for enjoyment or protection.
This is exactly... This is exactly my point.
Hopefully there's a happy medium in there somewhere.
It needs to be, but at some
Something
point,
for me, boys.
at some point you're asking for trouble.
Are you saying go thick and protect at all times?
I'm just
but are you
saying,
taking away from your pleasure?
Mate, I'd go double shin pads. I've got 2 kids now. I can't deal with a third.
I know, but listen, I've got 4 now. I should have put pads on years
Double
ago.
pads, mate. So there you go, mate. Each their own, but I personally
Each their own, mate.
Bit more robust if possible.
Or robust, maybe. Whatever protects. Right, that's been a good one today, boys. I actually really, really enjoyed that because I'm a big, obviously we know that I'm a big football fan. We're all big football fans here. So getting across the biggest games in football, the derbies, and like my experience of playing in them is just, it is a great experience, and I'm sure you boys feel the same. Going to those games, it's bigger than just a game.
I think we need to go to River Plate Boca Juniors. I think we should make an effort to do that. So anyone that wants to get in touch, reach out, take us over to Argentina for the Super El Clasico. And you guys have got a good excuse as well, haven't you? I'm just going to the football with work.
Yeah. And also, let us know about your experience at derbies. So whether that's football or whether you work for a company that is in kind of competition with another one, and like how it plays out. And
the Apple Microsoft derby.
Yeah, does some of the stuff Crouchy's talked about today resonate with your line of work or your relationship or
like
anything,
even that,
really?
like the prison derby, like the Screws v Inmates.
Yeah.
Like that kind of game. Like there must
That's
be
a
people
great
playing
one.
in that one.
Yeah.
Like that's a grudge match.
See, that's one I'd like to really get along to. But yeah, it can happen as well. I think sometimes your best mate is sort of a derby, isn't it? It's kind of like similar people, similar aims, that kind of thing. Like
brothers.
Sometimes get a bit vicious. I don't know. Anything Crouchy says resonates, get in touch. peter.crouch@acast.com.
Chumbawamba, boys.
Chumbawamba.
Chumbawamba.